Hey, it's Clay at claytrader.com. This will be our weekly review of the Power Profit Scan newsletter. This is a part of the subscription service that I offer, the Inner Circle. And the more talked about part of the service is usually the live trading chat room that comes with it. But another part of the service is this weekly email newsletter that I send out. And I just wanted the idea here is to go over past scan, and that way you can see kind of how it all works behind the scenes, and just see kind of just this portion of the subscription service. Now, what we're going to do here is just look at a week, and in this one, we're going to focus on the week of July 23rd of 2018. And as always, let me get a few disclaimers out of the way. First off, am I implying that every single alert and setup that I send out is going to be a winner? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm trying to imply. In fact, in past videos, I've shown losing alerts. I've shown ones where nothing has happened, so there's been kind of a quote-unquote no play. So, that does exist in past videos. But again, if you've never watched any of those past videos, I don't want to come across as, yeah, sign up and every single alert is going to be like the ones in this video. That's not reality. What I do hope to show, though, is why we focus on and why you should focus on risk management, risk control, understanding how to set up a trade plan with risk in mind, because losers are going to happen. But if you go about things the proper way, winners also happen, as you're going to see. And when you have the risk management, portion of your trading under control, that is, the winners that do occur are over time going to keep your trend or keep your account trending in the upwards direction. And then the other kind of disclaimer is, why am I focusing on scans from several weeks ago? Well, that has just allowed the chart enough time to play out and allowed talking points to occur. And also, just to be fair to the paying members, I don't want to be talking about scans and setups that are still potentially in play, because again, that's just not fair to them. They've paid. So I want to focus on the alerts where things have already played out, and there's it's kind of it's in the past now. Nothing can be done about it at this point in time. So what you're looking at here is behind the scenes of Clay Trader when you sign up for the subscription service. Like I said, part of it is the email. The email newsletter shows up, and then within that email, there's a link, and you click on it, and then you can come here, and it's got all the scans just listed out very sequentially for you. So like I said, we're going to be focusing on the week of 7/23/18. The first setup here was on ticker symbol AMD. And as you can see up here, the category or the classification, whatever you want to call it, breakout coming. And just down here mapped out a couple of these key technical areas. And it was very clear that right around the 58.50 mark was an area of resistance. So that was kind of the breakout point that I was implying to keep an eye on. So let's see how this one played out. Here's the chart. The newsletter does go out over the weekend. So this is what the chart looked like Friday, and then going into the weekend. So the next part of the chart that you see, the next candlestick, is going to be that Monday. So again, this red line here represents that breakout point. So let's see how this one played out. So you can see right there, it did not waste any time. Literally, that Monday, it little miniature gap up, and then just went and broke through that level at 58.50. Continued on up. Hovered up around that area, and then it did eventually pull back. So 4.2% move, and I get it. Not a gigantic percentage. However, for a big board stock, in a matter of just literally a few days, 4.2% on a highly liquid stock where you could have easily put in, $100,000. I'm not saying you should put in $100,000, but you could have. And then when it comes time to sell, you could have very, realistically sold $100,000 worth of stock. Whereas take the other extreme, if you're talking about some illiquid penny stock that does maybe $5,000 a day, yeah, have fun trying to sell $100,000 worth of that. So sure, that stock may have risen 420%, but when it comes time to sell, if you bought $100,000 worth, you could very easily crash the stock all on your own. So sure, the percentage, not gigantic, but 4.2% in a matter of less than a week. I mean, you can't get those rates at your local bank. So a nice little breakout there, though. Would have been nice if it had held up a little bit more and gotten continuation, but it is what it is. Another alert from that week was on ticker symbol NBR, and again up here the category, just a technical pattern, and in this case the classic falling wedge. I realize falling sounds like, oh, so that must be a bearish pattern, but actually falling wedge is the bullish technical pattern. A rising wedge is a bearish one. So yeah, this was a bullish pattern here, and you can see you had the lower trend line right there of the pattern, and then, the upper resistance trend line right there. So let's see how this pattern played out. Again, this is what the chart looked like going into the weekend. So the next part of the chart you see will be on Monday. So let's see how this one played out. So right there, Monday actually pulled back a little bit, hung around the lower portion of the trend line. So that is what I'm basing, the entry point right around. I am not, assuming that anybody got in right at the bottom or anything like that. But yeah, right around this area, I know, because here's the proof right here. The price just hovered, solidly right around this area right there. So a little bit of patience was required. Went up there, and the power of charts got rejected by there, but as you'll see, it's not like it got rejected and collapsed like the previous one on AMTD. It hung right up around that area, pulled back a little bit there, but again, put in that higher low, and then got the big breakout right there. Nice volume surge. And then from there, worked its way upwards, and then it did ultimately pull back, but still a nice 19% move, in a relatively short amount of time, just a couple of weeks. Now, next disclaimer, am I saying that members all played it perfectly and got 19%? No. Well, actually, that percentage would have been higher if I assumed like people got in at the absolute lows. But still, even with that, even if you got, let's just say 12% out of that profit window or 10% out of that profit window, you're not going to get those rates at a local bank. I get it. That's not like 190%, like maybe some sort of penny stock newsletter maybe trying to sell you on. But remember, you got to keep things realistic. And part of the making money process is being able to realistically sell. And, this is one that's got plenty of liquidity, plenty of volume. So again, we'll go with the $100,000 mark. You could have very, very, very realistically bought $100,000 worth. And then, let's just say you only got 10% out of the profit window. When it comes time to sell, you could have extremely realistically been able to sell that $100,000 worth of stock. So 19% move, 19% profit window. Not saying anybody actually played it that perfectly, but the idea here is plenty of wiggle room to pull some profits from the move. The final alert we're going to focus on, ticker symbol GERN, and the category, just wondering if a bounce was coming. I mapped out here, the interesting candle occurring at support. Volume started to creep in here. So just a classic setup here, nothing too fancy, but one where, when you understand charts, know what to look for on the scans, know what sort of scan criteria to use. It's a nice little potential setup here. But as you're about to see, patience can sometimes be required, although, as you're also about to see, patience can pay very, very nicely. Now, before I go any further, I do want to note, take observation to the fact that at no point did this one like collapse and then come back. Meaning, had you gotten in, it would have been very wise. It would have been very realistic for you to continue to hold and hold. Whereas had the price collapsed, and it's like, okay, wait a second, where did the risk management come into play? It collapsed, and then you held and hoped, and yeah, it came back for you. Congratulations, but you just built a terrible habit by having something totally collapse on you, and yet you still held and didn't, manage your risk and get out. So take note that there are no collapses. Sure, a little bit of patience was required, but it's not unrealistic patience. It's not like anything crazy happened where it was a blatant, oh, you should have been out. How did you even hold through that move? There was none of that occurs. So with that being said, let's see how this one plays out. So again, gets right down around that area. Very, very realistic to have gotten in. I am not, again, basing my calculations off of getting in at the bare bottom or anything like that. But, definitely right around this area, which you can see is realistic. But again, absolutely no massive collapses of the price or anything like that. So just lots of sideways price action. And then things start to wake up right there. So, this is a couple of weeks right there. So patience sometimes is required. But again, no collapses. So, it would have been very realistic. It's not like I'm no smoke and mirrors here in the sense of, saying that people could have held through there. Yeah, absolutely. It's not like, now had the price collapsed down below, 315, 310, definitely down below 3. Okay, at that point, you should have been out, but none of that occurred. So let's see how this one keeps going. So pulls back a little bit more, puts in those higher lows, starts to consolidate at those higher levels. So even right here is a solid little trade. But again, for those people that were patient, there it is right there. The big follow-through move, huge gap up, gigantic volume. And as of the time of this video, is actually still hanging up in that portion of the chart. So 73.4%. Again, that's not even, that's assuming you kind of got a little higher entry point down there. So a huge winner. Patience pays, and patience, like I said, can pay very, very nicely here. But yeah, GERN as of the recording of this video has been, talked about quite a bit. And yeah, the newsletter people were maybe some could argue a tad bit early, but it's still, it would have been waiting would have been required, but there's not anything necessarily bad with that. So yeah, GERN, definitely a big winner for the community. So on that note, if you are interested in joining the community, again, known as the Inner Circle, then just go to claytrader.com/inner circle. The cost is $99 per year, not per week, not per quarter, none of that nonsense, $99 per year. And I'd really encourage you, get out the calculator, do some calculations. If that's too much, then I'll do them for you. And if you don't believe me, you can double check. But if you do the math and break it down, $99 per year literally breaks down to $1.90 per week. So, I mean, how much are you spending on a cup of coffee? How much are you spending on, I don't know, anything that's $2 or more? You can afford this. So $1.90 per week, and you can get access to the community. And these are all the other things that come with it. Like I said, yes, there's a live trading chat room, and that definitely does get probably more of the talk, but that was the idea behind these. But a lot of different dynamics. And then there's also the mobile app that comes with it, so you can keep up to date. It's not like you have to be glued to your computer screen or anything like that. So if there are any questions on it or anything like that, you can leave those down in the comment section. I'd be happy to answer anything for you. But yeah, $99 per year, which breaks down to $1.90 per week. I would say that it's definitely worth at least giving a try. And as I always say, given the price over this time span of 12 months, I am very, very confident you'll get at least $99 worth of value. So I hope to see you in the community.